We live in an age where numbers glow on screens. We measure wealth in digital figures that can be erased by a central bank's interest rate decision, or by the press of a single button. But there's an unsettling truth: ancient empires were more aware of real wealth than we are. For them, money was not just metal or a symbol. It was trust, it was resources, it was survival. As we forget these lessons, we make ourselves more fragile. Take ancient Egypt, for example. A civilization that stood not for centuries, but for thousands of years. Its wealth was not based solely on gold. Yes, the pharaohs had plenty of gold, but their real power was grain. Each year the Nile flooded, leaving fertile silt and turning Egypt into the granary of the ancient world. The pharaohs understood this. True power is not in shiny metal, but in the ability to feed people. That is why surplus grain was stored in massive state granaries. Just as modern gold reserves are protected today, those granaries were guarded in the same way. In times of famine, those stocks kept society alive and strengthened the pharaoh's image as a protector. Wealth was not abstract. It was the bread on the table. It was insurance against crisis. Now look at today. GDP breaks records, yet people depend on food banks. Egypt's wealth was tangible. Simple. That's why it was resilient. Let's move to Rome. The genius of ancient Rome was not just conquest. It was turning conquest into a lasting economic system. For centuries, the silver denarius was trusted across the Mediterranean. People accepted it because they knew the silver inside was real. That trust brought together Spain's olive oil, Egypt's grain, Syria's silk, and Britain's tin under a single economic umbrella. Then came the trap every empire falls into: debasement. Emperors like Nero began reducing the silver content of the coins. At first, it seemed clever. Mint more money, pay more soldiers. But people noticed. Prices rose. Trust eroded. By the 3rd century, inflation spiraled out of control. Heavy taxes and coercive measures followed. Sound familiar? Egypt shows us this: wealth rests on resources. Rome shows us this: money is money only as long as people trust it. Before Rome, there was Mesopotamia. In Babylon especially, wealth was recorded on clay tablets. Farmers borrowed grain from temples, merchants extended credit over long distances. Money did not have to be physical. Record-keeping was enough. It was a revolutionary idea. But the Mesopotamians also knew this: uncontrolled debt is poison. That's why from time to time, debt jubilees were declared. Debts were wiped clean. This was not charity, it was a survival strategy. Excessive debt collapses societies and pushes them toward rebellion. Today, entire generations live with student loans, mortgages, and state debts. If Babylon were watching us, it would have been sounding the alarm bells long ago. Let's look at the Greeks. Ancient Athens rose not only on philosophy, but also on silver. The Laurian mines financed the navy and kept democracy afloat. But for a time, Athens did something important: it diversified. Trade, culture, alliances. Wealth did not depend on a single source. Then came hubris. Overexpansion, exploiting allies, losing balance. And the Peloponnesian War erupted. The balance collapsed. The lesson was simple: diversity is strength. Overconcentration destroys. And then there are Genghis Khan and the Mongols. At first glance, they don't come to mind when we think of financial wisdom. But they understood a crucial truth: conquest is meaningless if trade does not flow. They secured the Silk Road. They protected caravans. They built postal and communication networks. The Pax Mongolica era revitalized trade from China to Europe. What they understood was this: wealth grows when it circulates. Secure networks are more valuable than treasuries. All these examples point to one thing: wealth is not a number, it is trust, balance, and resilience. Egypt's grain, Rome's silver, Babylon's debt forgiveness, Athens' diversification, the Mongols' trade networks. These were defense systems built against shocks. When they broke down, collapse followed. Now back to today. Money that can be printed without limit. Savings that lose value year after year. Mountains of global debt. Fragile supply chains. Sanctions, trade wars, economic weapons. Just as inflation gnawed at Rome, today it gnaws at wages. Like Egypt forgetting to stock grain, we fail to safeguard our surpluses. Debt, as Babylon warned, turns into chains. Instead of secure trade networks, we build fragile systems. The harsh truth is this: you can't eat a stock market bubble. You can't trade for long with money that no one trusts. Real wealth is food, energy, resources, trust, and fair systems. Ancient people were not primitive. They knew that money, debt, and inflation could destroy empires. These rules did not change just because we called ourselves modern. Maybe the lesson we need to take is very simple. Diversify your wealth. Understand the value of real assets. Question the debt that chains you. And most importantly, don't confuse illusion with reality. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. And that rhyme says this: every empire that forgot the meaning of real wealth eventually collapsed. The real question is, will we recognize the warning in time?